Several years ago, I worked in the Middle East. The area was fast developing and built on oil revenues. Many expatriates had good salaries and easy lifestyles. Compound living was the norm. Think palm trees, pools and beach. I met my ex-wife through mutual friends at a party and we hit it off straight away. I found her engaging, intelligent and beautiful. I remember those times really well. Everything was great, money, holidays, etc. After a year, we both wanted to settle down and make a life together. So we married and moved into a great villa on the beach. I had a job in banking and finance, well paid with great perks. My wife had previously worked in a hotel as guest relations and decided it was something that she would now give up and study to become a teacher. Her teaching program was 2 years in total and required her to work in a school for at least 12 months. I was fully supportive, provided all the necessary funds and made sure my wife had everything. I was working long hours, but I was still attentive to her needs, date, nights, vacations, etc. She always expressed how she loved me and how lucky she was to have met me. Her parents were also very pleased with me as a doting husband. Fast forward to her school internship. And after 6 months, something I noticed had changed. She was becoming a little distant to me. A little secret of using her phone and was quite quick to pull me up on things. She was doing well in her internship and the school was lining her up for a position. She would get home around 3:30 p.m. She did not drive. So she was dropped off by a colleague while I would usually get in late around 8 p.m. One day 6 months into her internship, I found I had left a hard copy file in my home office that has some important information I needed in a report. I am usually quite organized. So it was frustrating. I usually called my wife to let her know when I was arriving home. But on this occasion, I just hopped in my car and drove for 40 minutes back home. It was around 3:30 p.m. and expected to see my wife when I was driving up to the villa. I noticed an unknown car in the driveway and unusual, the bedroom curtains were closed, which I had a habit of opening and closing in the morning and evening. Something immediately bothered me about this. It was not one of her girlfriend's car. I felt my heart pounding in my chest and was physically feeling ill. I had the presence of mind not to storm up the drive. I pulled over onto a side street and waited. Within 45 minutes, around 4 p.m., I saw a man who I did not recognize come out of my house and get into the car. My wife was waving him goodbye. I was in complete shock and disbelief. I convinced myself that there would be some rational explanation. Although my mind was racing, I decided to follow the car. It went to the next expatriate compound and I noted the address. I decided to go to a nearby cafe and waited to go home. I needed real strength to maintain my composure. I called her saying I would be a little early today and I was greeted by my cheerful wife saying that she would have something ready for me. It took me a lot of effort to control my emotions inside. I was shattered. I got home and asked her how her day went. She explained that she had been busy at the school and that the students had been very well behaved and nothing eventful happened. I asked her what time she got home and she said that she had got a lift from one of the teachers there and got home around 3 and was so tired. She went straight to bed. I knew right then that my whole life with her was over. I wanted to confront her with what I knew there. And then, but I did not. I was hurting and very angry. I knew something was going on but wanted hard evidence. That evening, I let my wife know that I was having difficulty waking up in time to get out early before she did. So I went out that night to what was called the electronic. And bought an alarm clock camera which I placed in the bedroom on my side of the bed. I could not really sleep because of what I had thought had gone on in the room. I did not want to be there. So I said I had some work I had to do in my home office later that night. When she was sleeping, I accessed her phone for the very first time. I would never have thought to do so otherwise. And there it was, a stream of texts, which timeline, a parallel relationship going back 5 months, I also had the name of the AP. He was a teacher and their program supervisor at the school. She complained how I always worked and never loved her, and he confirmed how he married too young and his wife didn't care about him, and how lucky he was to have met such a wonderful, loving person. Lots of flirty BS and sex talk. I felt absolutely devastated. I just did not see it coming. It was such a knife to my heart that I decided that I would wreak absolute devastation on them and care nothing about the consequences. Adultery is a criminal offense in this country which is punishable up to 3 years in prison followed by deportation. I knew that I needed explicit video evidence of the act for the next 5 days. I remained civil and purposely would leave early and arrive very late. It was one of the most difficult times in my life. She definitely said something and was always asking, was I okay? Can she do anything, etc.? It wasn't long until I had one clear sexual encounter in high definition with audio. It was too painful to view. I went to the police and filed a complaint against my wife and the AP for adultery. I provided the video and audio evidence. The police said that they wanted to catch him in my house together. And so they staked out the house for a few days. On the 3rd day, they caught him. They knocked on the door and my wife answered in a bathrobe, and he was upstairs lying in my marital bed naked. They were both arrested. The shit show that followed was terrible. The scandal at the school. AP's wife having a meltdown and the 3 embassies getting involved. I refused to speak to my wife, but she managed to get one of her friends to bail her out. But she could not leave the country as she was under a travel ban and her passport had been confiscated. This was now a criminal case which the state was prosecuting. I did not want to know what happened to the AP, but needless to say his marriage did not last and he was out of a job. I subsequently resigned. Broke my lease early and flew back home, and divorced AP and her were found guilty of committing adultery and both sentenced to 6 months in jail and immediate deportation to their respective home countries. Note: she does not live in my country. I have never spoken to her since or cared about what she did. I have since moved on, married with 2 children, and never been happier. It might be worth noting that those laws are still there, and if someone went on vacation to that country and committed adultery and there was hard evidence, the police will be forced to act. Well, as of 2022 here in the U.S. Cheating is a crime in 16 states, but you don't really hear about people getting prosecuted for cheating. In my opinion, I don't think it's worth spending taxpayer dollars to prosecute someone for cheating. Just get a divorce and move on with your life. It sucks for these 2 people in this story though, because they lost their freedom for 6 months, lost their job, and they got deported in Saudi Arabia. Judges have the power to sentence you to death as of 2019. Until next time.